starting with 1 million luck points. Chapter 36. Zhou Hao, come out and eat. Zhou Suiwo's voice sounded from the living room. Coming. Zhou Hao replied. He composed himself and quickly walked out of the bedroom. His mother, Wang Shiyun, cooked quite quickly, since the ingredients were all prepared in advance and did not take much effort. During the meal, Wang Shiyun smiled and said, "Dad, quit your job if you can. After all, we don't have any difficulties anymore. Don't tire yourself out." Zhou Hao hurriedly took the opportunity to nod and agree. Mom's right. Dad, quickly resign and rest at home. Zhou Suiwo took a sip of wine and glared at Zhou Hao angrily. Son, don't interfere. If I don't work, who will support this family? But your mother is right. We should change jobs. I'll talk to the leaders in a few days. Seeing that Zhou Suiwo had relented, Zhou Hao was happy. His father's work was very tiring, and many people would even die from being overworked. Son, eat more. Wang Shiyun kept putting meat into Zhou Hao's bowl. Zhou Hao did not refuse and chuckled. For 2 days straight, he was in a good mood. He even hummed a tune in class. Su Ling, who was sitting in the front seat, did not appreciate his new attitude. If you don't advance in martial arts, you'll fall behind, you slacker. Su Ling had already signed up for the combat assessment and vowed to get first place. However, that could only happen if the hidden genius of the school did not take action. Zhou Hao chuckled and said, Su Ling, I signed up to participate too. Before Su Ling could say anything, her sitmate, Li Yun, could not help but laugh. Turning around, Li Yun was still smiling. Zhou Hao, shouldn't you be aware of your own limits? Whether it was during the last tournament or during this combat assessment, you need to at least be at the first level of blood essence to sign up. Su Ling's face darkened. She turned around and was about to reprimand Zhou Hao but was suddenly stunned. Zhou Hao, what happened to your blood essence? Zhou Hao said indifferently, I was lucky to break through to the first level of blood essence last night. Li Yun's laughter froze. You actually broke through. Su Ling frowned. It's just the first level of blood essence. It's nothing to be surprised about. Li Yun said awkwardly, yes, it's nothing. Su Ling ignored Li Yun and looked at Zhou Hao. You used the blood amalgamation pill again, right? It's alright for you to break through to the first level of blood essence with 2 blood amalgamation pills. However, do you really think you should be signing up for the combat assessment right after breaking through? Even suicidal people wouldn't do something like that. She knew that Zhou Hao had made a lot of money from the previous tournament and assumed that he probably used it to buy the blood amalgamation pills. Zhou Hao was already used to Su Ling's disdain. He could tell that Su Ling had good intentions. With the teacher around, nothing will happen. I'll just treat it as practice, he said casually, his gaze intertwining with Su Ling's. Didn't you say that I have to work hard? Su Ling immediately rolled her eyes. I told you to work hard, not to die. Forget it, I can't be bothered with you. However, just as school was about to end, Su Ling added, go to the training field later. I'll teach you a set of movements. Zhou Hao laughed secretly. He had figured out Su Ling's true nature, a girl with a sharp tongue but a soft heart. No need. I still have something to deal with. He waved his hand and refused. It was the truth. He indeed had something to do as the king-level saber had been completed. To wash a pig is to waste both water and soap. After saying this coldly, Su Ling turned around and left. Zhou Hao was speechless. In the evening, he visited the bearded storekeeper and paid more than 4 million yuan for the forging fees and materials. He then received his saber. Sir, this saber can easily tear through the defense of a low king-level beast. If you want to test it, I'll immediately arrange, the bearded shopkeeper said. No need. Zhou Hao waved his hand and flicked the handle of the saber. Buzz. The saber trembled and hummed. Not bad. He smiled. For the saber to be able to withstand the force of his flick, the quality of his saber had indeed reached the king level. He immediately turned around and left. The bearded shopkeeper was dumbfounded. That was a king-level saber. Even a full power strike from a high-level master might not be able to cause the saber to tremble. In the end, with a casual flick from this customer, the saber almost bent. Could he be a grandmaster? Thinking of this, the bearded store owner was extremely excited. He had received a martial grandmaster. At the South Station defense line of the Huadong city, Battalion Commander Chu stood on the tall defensive wall and looked at the lush forest in the distance. Did anything happen recently? He asked into his ear mic. Reporting to Battalion Commander, everything is normal at the city's defense line. No outsiders have infiltrated. Battalion Commander Chu frowned. Are you sure? Yes, Battalion Commander. No abnormalities have been detected from the equipment, a voice sounded in the ear mic. Continue to stay alert. We can't let a single foreign race expert infiltrate the base. Battalion Commander Chu said coldly. There were many ways for outsiders to infiltrate the city. The insect race was especially hard to guard against. The human bases had suffered a lot because of them. But unfortunately, the detectors couldn't keep up and couldn't stop the insect race from gathering information. Buzz. Suddenly, the lush forest shook. Battalion Commander Chu's expression changed slightly as he immediately ordered his men to operate the large searchlight. The light swept past. Green insects surged out from the lush forest. Intercept them with the electric network. Battalion Commander Chu heaved a sigh of relief. After all, it was common for green insects to attack the base. However, just as he finished giving the order, his pupils constricted. He followed the light and saw a huge shadow behind the green insects. It's the flying beetle. Level 3 alert. Did. An ear-piercing alarm sounded from the defensive line. One by one, fully armed soldiers woke up from their sleep and rushed up the defensive wall in an extremely short period of time. Chapter 37. Tap. 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 Boom. 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 Dense bullets flew out from the soldiers' barrels, forming a metal storm that tore apart the large numbers of green insects. The modified artillery behind the defensive wall roared deafeningly, blasting huge flying beetles into pieces. For a moment, thousands of insect corpses fell from the sky like a storm. Battalion Commander Chu and the other martial artists in the camp watched the scene with cold expressions. Having resisted countless foreign invaders, they knew very well that this was only the appetizer. The gunshots lasted for more than half an hour when lightning suddenly flashed in the flourishing forest. Battalion Commander Chu narrowed his eyes. It's the thunder fire insects. Inform the ground forces to open the defensive energy net. Yes. Soon, an incomparably intense blue light that lit up the entire defensive wall was instantly emitted from the three defense lines. Chi. 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 Like lightning in a black cloud, the lightning instantly formed balls of blazing energy that bombarded over in the blink of an eye and landed on the blue energy net, causing layers of energy ripples. The lightning lasted for more than 10 minutes before gradually dying out. Rumble. At this moment, the ground outside the defensive line shook. The main event has arrived. Battalion Commander Chu's entire body was suddenly covered in armor as he took out a saber that was suffused with a cold luster. Swoosh. 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 The martial artists of the other camps were all fully armed, their sabers flashing. Boom. 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 The ground suddenly exploded. Giant scorpions that were 50 to 60 meters tall rushed towards the defensive line with long tails in their hands. It's the giant scorpion. Kill them all with me. Commander Chu's voice resounded throughout the defensive line. He was the first to jump and charge towards the 1,000+ giant scorpions. Kill. The other martial artists followed behind regardless of their own safety. The cannon fire behind the defensive lines also switched directions and bombarded these giant scorpions. North Station, Huadong City. Commander Zhao, who was holding down the fort, had already received the news that the southern station was being attacked by the insect race. However, his expression was calm, and there was no panic in his eyes. Commander, Battalion Commander Chu reported that it was a Level 3 alert. Staff Officer Chen whispered. Commander Zhao nodded. Get Falcon Team 3 to provide support. Also, keep a close eye on them. If there are any accidents, report immediately. Yes. 2 hours passed. In front of the southern defense line of the base was a large number of insect race corpses. The gunshots had stopped. Battalion Commander Chu and the other martial artists' armor were covered in disgusting blood from the severed limbs of the insect race. The stench was unbearable, and even the Falcon team that had rushed over to provide support could not stand it. Battalion Commander, there's something wrong with the insect race attack this time. Yeah, the thunder is loud, but the rain is small. There wasn't even an intermediate general level insect beast. In the past, we would at least have to face high general level insect beasts, and even the demon race would also take the opportunity to attack. But this time, there wasn't any of that. The other martial artists opened their helmets and frowned. Battalion Commander Chu stepped on a giant scorpion and said in a deep voice, "There's indeed something wrong. However, I've contacted the intelligence department. I was told that there was no abnormality while we were resisting the attack." As he spoke, he looked at Falcon 3's team. "Captain Wang, thank you for your help this time. I'll have to trouble you to report the situation to Commander Zhao in detail." Captain Wang saluted. Battalion Commander Chu, don't worry. I'll report the truth. Euro. The residents of the base city were unaware of the insect race attack at the southern station. They were still busy at work the next day. The 3-day registration period for the combat assessment at Chu City High School had also long ended. Because it was a combat assessment competition instead of a regular tournament competition, less than half of the participating students of the previous competition signed up, despite there being more prize money for this competition. Even so, the school leaders still persisted in holding the combat assessment. At around 8:00, one by one, the important figures of the Education Bureau rushed over. Some of the parents of the participating Year 3 students had also arrived. After all, this was a combat assessment. Not only were the parents worried, but the leaders of the bureau were also worried. Director Su is here too. Yo, Chief Wang, you're here too. Director Li, what a rare sight. Most of the important figures in the bureau and the parents knew each other. They spent some time chatting on the high platform where the audience seats were located. That was until a calm man in a military uniform walked over. The communication between these important figures and the parents immediately stopped. All of them looked at the man in the military uniform. Chapter 38. Su Ling's father, Su Zhenhua, was shocked. He hurriedly stepped forward and saluted. "Instructor Shen, Su Zhenhua from the 33rd batch reporting to you." Shen Jing looked at Su Zhenhua in surprise. He seemed to recall something and said in realization, "I remember now. During the 33rd batch, you were the most naughty one." Su Zhenhua said excitedly, "I didn't expect you to remember me, instructor." Shen Jing smiled. "I remember every single one of my students. Zhenhua, your daughter has potential. We'll see how she performs in this battle." "Thank you for your praise, instructor," Su Zhenhua hurriedly said. The other important figures did not dare to interrupt. After all, Instructor Shen was a high-level master and had come from Yanjing City. His status was far higher than theirs. "All right, have a seat." Seeing that everyone was standing, Shenjing casually waved his hand and sat down. Whoosh! The group of important figures and parents sat down one after another. Principal Zheng, the dean, and the other teachers were not qualified to sit. They could only stand at the side. Shenjing swept his gaze around and saw that many parents had worried expressions. He could not help but smile and say, "Everyone, don't worry. To ensure the safety of this combat assessment, I have specially transferred 2 martial artist teams from the defense line of the base. All the other mutated beasts have also been strictly tested. No accidents will occur. Oh, the participants will also be given standard armor." Hearing this, Wang Ming, Li Ji, and the other students' parents heaved a sigh of relief but were still worried nonetheless. Anything could happen in a fight against a mutated beast. Shenjing retracted his gaze and said calmly, "Principal Zheng, let's begin." Principal Zheng, who was standing at the side, hurriedly informed the teachers to make the arrangements. Clang! Clang! Soon, huge iron cages were slowly placed on the training ground under the transport of the army's martial artist team. After seeing the mutated beasts inside the iron cage, the parents, including Su Zhenhua, heaved a sigh of relief. So it's a tusk boar. Tusk boars were the most common of all the mutated beasts and were very weak. Let alone third-level blood essence students, even second-level blood essence students would be able to kill them if they exerted their full strength. Even these parents had experienced killing a few of them in their younger days. Furthermore, the students of this combat assessment were equipped with standard armor that only martial artists were allowed to wear. It could be said that their lives would not be in danger at all. Instructor Shen sure made thorough arrangements. That's right. With the army camp's martial artist team holding the line and the students being protected by standard armor, nothing will go wrong. The participating students just have to perform well. The bureau leaders and parents immediately began to praise Instructor Shen enthusiastically. Some parents who had come to watch the fun even regretted not letting their children sign up for the combat assessment. At 9:30 in the morning, Zhou Hao and the other 184 students who had signed up for the competition arrived at the training ground under the lead of the Year 3 leader. At the same time, a large number of students were allowed to enter the spectator stands. Ah! It's a mutated beast. I know. It's a tusk boar. This mutated beast is classified as a low-level demon beast. Damn, if I knew they were going to use tusk boars, I would have signed up. That's right. The rewards for getting into the top 20 are doubled this time. I can't believe I missed such a great opportunity. Many students were shocked when they saw the mutated beast in the iron cage. Soon after, they all pounded their chests in regret. The tusk boar might look fierce and malevolent, but it was even used for demonstrations during materials class. Therefore, most of the students were very familiar with it and were not afraid at all. Zhou Hao and the other participating students were even less afraid. Instead, they were all excited. Haha, so it turned out to be the tusk boar. I'll kill it to my heart's content. The top 20 will be rewarded with 100,000 yuan. I might have lost my chance last time, but I will surely get into the top 20 this time. It's just a tusk boar. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have been so frightened to the point of losing sleep for the past few days. The Year 3 leader walking in front saw that the participating students were starting to relax and could not help but scold, "Even if it's a tusk boar, you still can't be careless." "Yes, teacher." Many students responded in a perfunctory manner. They had found out in advance that the school would distribute standard armor for this combat assessment and were thus worried for a long time. Now that they knew their opponent was a tusk boar, they had naturally become more at ease. The rules of the competition are very simple. The more tusk boars you kill, the higher your ranking will be. 5 students in the arena at a time. Let us know if you face any difficulties, there will be martial artists coming forward to help. The referee said solemnly. Got it? Let's begin quickly. I can't wait to kill these tusk boars. The participating students rubbed their fists. The Year 3 leader shook his head speechlessly. He waved his hand, and the teachers brought over standard armor for the students to wear. Although standard armors were expensive, the school still decided to use them as the lives of the students were more important. In this aspect, the school leaders did not dare to make any mistakes. There was also an impassable metal railing around the training field as well as 5 barriers on the field. Behind each of the barriers, stood a martial artist from the military camp. On the high platform, Instructor Shen walked forward and shouted, "Begin." Chapter 39. The whistle blew, and the 5 people standing at the front rushed out. Click, click, click. Their helmets kept their faces covered as the iron cage's fence slowly opened. The hungry tusk boar let out low roars as its scarlet eyes stared at the armor in front of it. Swoosh! It rushed up like a tank. Most of the participating students in the first group were shocked. They were unable to dodge in time and were directly pounced on by the tusk boar. Seeing this, most of the students in the spectator stands laughed. Why did you choose to participate if you're so weak? Hurry up and go home. Yeah, stop embarrassing yourself. On the high platform, the leaders and parents shook their heads. They could tell that this group of participating students had no combat experience at all. The teachers, standing beside them, all lowered their heads in embarrassment. I wonder who will win this time. If I'm not wrong, it should be Director Su's daughter, right? Yes, Director Su's daughter is indeed outstanding. Listening to the surrounding discussion, Su Zhenhua smiled. He looked at Instructor Shen and hurriedly said humbly, "You're too kind. It's hard to say in a fight against mutated beasts." Shenjing did not say a word as he casually looked at the competition below. Group after group of participating students went up, but their performances were very poor. None of them had ever fought a mutated beast before. The moment they faced the tusk boar, their confidence instantly disappeared. All of them were in a sorry state. It was only when the outstanding students at the second level of blood essence went on stage that the situation improved slightly. Zhou Hao stood at the back and shook his head as he watched the match. Su Ling was also placed in the last row. She looked straight ahead and whispered, "Zhou Hao, when we start fighting later, don't hold back and call for a stop if you can't keep up." Although the standard armor's defense is high, the impact of the tusk boar is also pretty strong. You could still get injured. Zhou Hao was about to thank her when he saw Zhang Yi sweep his gaze over. Suddenly, he changed what he was going to say and said, "You should focus on yourself. Wang Ming has already killed 3 tusk boars, don't lose to him." Hearing this, Su Ling shouted angrily, "You don't know what's good for you." Not long after, the earlier groups all finished competing. Zhou Hao's group was last in line, so it was finally their turn. "Daughter, you can do it?" Su Zhenhua couldn't help but shout from the high platform. Su Ling smiled back. "It's Su Ling. She's the strongest. She should be able to kill 4 tusk boars." "Not necessarily. In a battle with a mutated beast, combat instincts are also very important." Zhou Hao, that toad lusting after swan meat, is also participating in the competition. He's even in the same group as Su Ling. TCH, so what if they're in the same group? He's only going to perform poorly and make Su Ling look better. Just watch. A pounce from the tusk boar is enough to make him kneel. Many students in the audience who were in the same class as Zhou Hao began to discuss. The others who had heard of Zhou Hao's reputation also chimed in. On the high platform, Shenjing gave Principal Zheng a look. Principal Zheng nodded secretly and whispered into his ear mic. Soon, the army martial artist in charge of releasing the tusk boars sprinkled a handful of transparent powder with his hand. The scarlet eyes of the tusk boars in the iron cage suddenly widened. Instantly the tusk boars became even more bloodthirsty and crazy. begin. As the whistle sounded, the tusk boars rushed out of the 5 iron cages. Zhou Hao pretended to be nervous as he bent his back. Not far away, Zhang Yi's face was covered in sweat. In their group, only Su Ling performed in a relaxed state. Puchi. Just as the tusk boar was about to pounce over, Zhou Hao pretended to stagger and fell to the ground. However, he fell at the right moment as he held the saber in front of him. The tusk boar coincidentally pounced onto the tip of the saber. And with just a single pounce, the tusk boar that Zhou Hao was facing died. In the entire span of the competition, which had lasted for several hours, this was the fastest anyone had killed a tusk boar after entering the arena. After that, there was an uproar in the audience. Damn, that worked. Damn, how lucky is this guy? I'm speechless. The tusk boar killed itself. Humph, this Zhou Hao is really lucky. But let's see how he deals with the next tusk boar. Many students discussed and sighed at the lucky coincidence. On the high platform, many leaders and parents sighed at Zhou Hao's luck. Shenjing was stunned for a moment and frowned. Was it really just luck? He was especially observant and could naturally tell that the moment Zhou Hao fell, the saber moved after being timed perfectly so that the tusk boar would fall on it. Since that was the first kill, I'll consider it as luck. But I won't believe it to be luck the second time it happens. The corner of Shenjing's mouth curled up slightly. He had not forgotten the purpose of this combat test. Chapter 40. Roar. After the tusk boar was killed by Zhou Hao, another one was released from the iron cage. Its scarlet eyes made one's heart shudder. Zhou Hao's expression seemed anxious, but he was actually very calm on the inside. He was thinking about how to kill this second beast. Clearly, he could not pretend to get lucky twice. Otherwise, it would easily arouse suspicion. Looks like I have to fight him head on and show off my combat talent. After making up his mind, he swayed his body and prepared for battle. However, at this moment, the tusk boar that was fighting with Su Ling on the left suddenly erupted with a fierce aura. As if it had transformed, the body of this tusk boar suddenly expanded by several meters in a few seconds. Not good. This tusk boar has broken through. Everyone on the high platform and the spectator stands instantly stood up. Su Ling's expression changed slightly, but she did not panic. Even if the tusk boar broke through, it would still not reach the level of a low-level beast warrior. On the other hand, Su Ling was already almost at the peak of the third level of blood essence, which was more than enough for her to handle her opponent. Putting away the saber in her hand, she quickly retreated to pull away from the tusk boar. However, the transformation of the tusk boar was still ongoing. Boom! The tusk boar's body expanded again. Its 2 tusks multiplied into 4, stabbing out of its mouth like sharp knives. Its scarlet eyes were blood red, and the skin on its body shrank as its hair grew crazily. A horn even protruded from its forehead. An intermediate-level beast warrior. It had transformed into an intermediate-level beast warrior, the single-horn tusk boar. Its strength had now completely exceeded the limit that Su Ling could handle. Most of the students in the audience screamed, and some girls even covered their eyes. Daughter! Su Zhenhua shouted anxiously from the platform, wanting to rush down the stage to save his daughter. However, at this moment, a figure blocked Su Zhenhua. It was Shenjing. Su Zhenhua's eyes were red. Instructor Shen, that's my daughter. Shenjing said indifferently, what? Don't you think I'm able to handle a mere intermediate-level beast warrior? Su Zhenhua finally reacted. The instructor in front of him was a high-level master. Instructor, could it be? He regained his calm. That's right. I arranged it. Shenjing looked at the other leaders. Why are you panicking? Keep watching. Strength can only erupt in a life and death crisis. Only then did the leaders and the other parents heave a sigh of relief. So it was all arranged by Instructor Shen. Yes, Instructor Shen is right. Only by facing a huge pressure crisis can you break through and become stronger. Director Su, it seems like Instructor Shen values your daughter very much. Su Zhenhua said awkwardly, Instructor, just now. Shen Jing waved his hand. I understand. As the few of them were talking, on the training ground, Su Ling's face turned pale. Facing the single-horn tusk boar that had transformed into an intermediate-level beast warrior, she could only hurriedly rely on her armor to defend and dodge. On the other hand, Zhou Hao couldn't help but frown when he saw this. The other tusk boars were fine, but the one Su Ling was facing had transformed. Moreover, it had transformed from a low-level mutated beast to an intermediate-level beast warrior. He was certain that someone had planned this. Trying to force me to reveal my strength again. Zhou Hao smiled bitterly. He quickly realized what was going on. The school leaders must have wanted to confirm who the peerless genius was, but how could they use such ruthless methods? Roar. Zhou Hao kept thinking about the situation as he effortlessly handled the crazy attack of the tusk boar, all while keeping an eye on Su Ling's situation. In just 5 or 6 seconds, Su Ling had already fallen into danger. She was sent flying several times by the single-horn tusk boar, and her standard armor even cracked. The surrounding martial artists couldn't help but ask through their earpieces if they should take action. However, Shen Jing still told them to wait. Boom! Another violent collision. Su Ling was sent flying again and slammed into the railing, blood flowing from the corner of her mouth. Su Zhenhua, who was watching from the platform, felt his heart ache, but he forcefully endured the urge and could only silently shout in his heart, "Come on, daughter." Zhou Hao dodged the charging tusk boar and looked at Su Ling, secretly shaking his head. Su Ling wasn't the kind of person who could suddenly become stronger in a crisis. If she was, she would have broken through long ago when she was in the southern station's wilderness area and faced so many giant wolves. He knew this very well. Looks like I'm going to have to take action. After thinking for a moment, he exerted strength with his foot, and an extremely small stone bounced out at an incomparably terrifying speed, instantly piercing through the thigh bones of the single-horn tusk boar. Boom! The single-horn tusk boar that was pouncing towards Su Ling staggered and fell to the ground. Su Ling was stunned. The countless students in the spectator stands were also stunned. On the high platform, be it the leaders or the parents of the students, their eyes were all wide open. Su Zhenhua heaved a sigh of relief. He believed that one of the martial artists must have made a move. Shen Jing's eyes suddenly lit up. His gaze swept firmly towards the 4 participating students around Su Ling. What are you waiting for? Take the opportunity to kill the single-horn tusk boar. The martial artist who was standing by couldn't stand it any longer and shouted at Su Ling. Only then did Su Ling come to her senses. She hurriedly turned her body to the side and slashed the neck of the single-horn tusk boar with her saber. The ferocious boar head was chopped off. Nice. Beautiful. Su Ling is too awesome. This scene made countless students shout out in excitement. Many people shouted and cheered for Su Ling. After all, this was an intermediate-level beast warrior, the single-horn tusk boar. Su Ling had actually managed to kill such an existence. Shen Jing smiled. The goal of this combat assessment had been achieved. All that was left was to determine who was the peerless genius. All right, let's end this, he said into his earpiece. Swoosh! Swoosh! The martial artists holding the fort instantly attacked, killing one tusk boar after another. Shen Jing walked forward and said slowly, due to an unexpected situation, the combat assessment will end early. As soon as he finished speaking, many people were stunned. On the other hand, the participating students who had the potential to enter the top 20 also started to feel excited. Rumble. Just as everyone thought that the assessment had ended, the ground of the training grounds shook.